I, 28M, need some perspective on a situation that's bringing back a lot of painful memories. I'm the youngest of two kids, with my sister Jane, 35F, being 7 years older than me. Our story really starts when our parents died in a car accident. I was 15 and Jane was 22. It completely turned our world upside down. We weren't rich by any means, but our parents had worked hard to give us a stable life. Dad was a mechanic who worked 6 days a week, and Mom worked part-time at a local diner while taking care of us. They weren't perfect, but they loved us and always made sure we had what we needed. The house they left us wasn't anything fancy, just a small 3-bedroom in an okay neighborhood, but it was paid off and meant to be our safety net. When they died, Jane had just graduated college and started her first job as an entry-level accountant. She became my legal guardian since I was still a minor. Looking back, I know it must have been hard for her to suddenly become responsible for a teenage brother while trying to start her own life. The first year was rough, we were both grieving, and she was working long hours trying to make ends meet. I did my best to help by keeping my grades up, doing household chores, and even getting a weekend job at a local grocery store to contribute what I could. Things started to change when Jane met Tom, then 25M, at her workplace. He was a junior manager and seemed nice enough at first. They dated for about 6 months before he moved in with us, saying it would help with the bills. That's when everything started going downhill. Tom never liked having me around. He would make snide comments about how much I ate, how much space I took up, and how I was preventing them from having a normal relationship. At first, he would only say these things when Jane wasn't around, but gradually he started complaining to her too. He'd say things like how weird it was to have a teenager in the house, how they couldn't have any privacy, and how Jane was sacrificing her youth taking care of her brother instead of living her own life. I tried really hard to stay out of their way. I spent most of my time in my room, ate dinner after they did, and tried to be as quiet as possible. I even started doing extra chores and gave them more of my paycheck, hoping it would help. But nothing seemed to be enough for Tom. The real problem started when they got engaged. Tom started talking about wanting to start a family and how they needed more space. He kept pushing Jane to sell the house, saying they could use the money for a down payment on a bigger place. But since I was still a minor and my name was also on the deed, our parents left it to both of us. They couldn't sell without waiting for me to turn 18. Just after my 18th birthday and high school graduation, Jane sat me down for the talk. I'll never forget that day. I had just gotten accepted to the local state university and was excited to start college while living at home to save money. I had it all planned out. I would work part-time, help with bills, and focus on my studies. But Jane had other plans. She told me I needed to move out before the fall semester started. She said she and Tom were getting married and wanted to start their own family, and that it wasn't fair to them to have me around anymore. I was shocked. I begged her to let me stay, even offering to pay more rent with my part-time job money. I reminded her that half the house was legally mine and that our parents would have wanted us to help each other. She just got cold and said I was being selfish and manipulative by bringing up our parents. She said she had already sacrificed 3 years of her life taking care of me, and that I was old enough to take care of myself now. When I asked where I was supposed to go, she just shrugged and said I could figure it out like other adults do. I spent the next few weeks sleeping in my beat-up Honda Civic, showering at the gym, and trying to figure out what to do. I couldn't afford dorm housing or an apartment on my part-time grocery store salary. My grades from the first few weeks of college started slipping because it's hard to study when you're living in your car. Finally, my best friend's family found out about my situation and took me in. For the next 4 years, I worked 2 jobs while studying full-time. I worked as a janitor in the mornings before classes and at a call center in the evenings. I barely slept, but I was determined to graduate and make something of myself. My friends' family helped when they could, but they weren't well off either, so I tried to contribute what I could to their household. I managed to graduate with a computer science degree and landed a good job at a tech company. I worked my way up, saved everything I could, and last year I finally bought my own house. It's not huge, but it's mine, and I'm proud of what I've accomplished despite everything. Jane and I haven't had much contact over the years. She tried reaching out a few times, usually around holidays, but I kept things minimal. I never forgot how she chose her husband over her own brother and left me homeless. I later found out they sold our parents' house shortly after I left, but I never saw a penny from the sale. Last week, Jane called me crying. Apparently, Tom lost his job 6 months ago and has been hiding a gambling addiction. He's gambled away all their savings and they lost their house to foreclosure. They're getting divorced, and she has nowhere to go. She asked if she could stay with me until she gets back on her feet, saying she's my sister and family should help family. I laughed. I actually laughed. I reminded her of how she threw me out at 18 and told her that just like I was old enough to figure it out then, she's certainly old enough to figure it out at 35. She started crying harder, saying I was being cruel and that she regrets what she did, but I cut her off. I told her that her regrets don't change the fact that I spent weeks sleeping in my car because of her. Now our aunt and other relatives are calling me, saying I should forgive Jane because she did her best raising me after our parents died. They say I'm being petty and that I should be the bigger person. But I can't forget those weeks of being homeless, the exhaustion of working 2 jobs while studying, and the loneliness of having my only family choose a man over me. Ida for refusing to help her now that she's the one in need? Update 1. First, I want to thank everyone who commented on my original post. Your support and validation meant more to me than I can express. A lot has happened in the past 2 weeks, and I need to get it off my chest. After I refused to let Jane stay with me, things escalated quickly. She started calling every family member we have, telling them a carefully edited version of our story. According to her, she sacrificed her early 20s to raise her teenage brother, worked herself to the bone to provide for me, and now that she's in need, I'm turning my back on her. She conveniently left out the part about kicking me out at 18 or selling our parents' house without giving me my share. Our Aunt Maria, Mom's sister, was the first to call. She was practically screaming at me, saying I was an ungrateful brat who didn't appreciate all the sacrifices Jane made. When I tried to tell her my side of the story, she cut me off, saying I was just a teenager then and couldn't possibly understand how hard it was for Jane. I reminded her that none of them offered to help when I was sleeping in my car, but she just said I was being dramatic. Then the messages started pouring in. Cousins I haven't spoken to in years suddenly had opinions about what a terrible brother I am. Our Uncle Bob, who I haven't seen since our parents' funeral, left a long voicemail about how family should stick together in hard times. Even my mother's best friend, who used to babysit us when we were kids, messaged me on Facebook saying she was disappointed in the man I'd become. The situation reached a boiling point last Wednesday when Jane showed up at my house unannounced. I was working from home and saw her pull up in a beat-up Toyota with 2 large suitcases in the back. She walked right up to my front door and started ringing the doorbell repeatedly. I watched through my security camera as she kept pressing it, then started banging on the door when I didn't answer. I got on the intercom and told her to leave or I'd call the police. She started crying, saying she had nowhere else to go and that Tom had cleaned out their joint account before disappearing. She sat down on my porch and refused to move, saying she would wait until I changed my mind. My next-door neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, came over concerned about the commotion. Jane immediately started telling her this sob story about her heartless brother leaving her homeless. After 3 hours of this, I finally called the police. While waiting for them to arrive, Jane pulled out her phone and started recording herself. Through my security camera, I could hear her narrating how her brother, who she raised after their parents died, was calling the cops on her instead of helping her in her time of need. She posted this video on Facebook, tagging mutual friends and family members. The police finally came and convinced her to leave, but the damage was done. Her video went viral in our social circle. Former high school classmates started messaging me, saying they couldn't believe how cruel I was being. Some of my cousins shared the video, adding captions about how money changes people and success made me forget where I came from. The biggest shock came the next day when I received a message from Sarah, Tom's sister. We weren't close, but she had always been nice to me when I lived with Jane. She said she couldn't stay quiet anymore after seeing Jane's video. According to Sarah, back when I was 18, Jane and Tom had already made plans to sell our parents' house. They had a buyer lined up and everything, but they couldn't proceed because my name was on the deed too. That's why they were so adamant about getting me out. They wanted to sell the house without having to split the money with me. Sarah provided screenshots of old text messages between her and Tom where he complained about how my presence was preventing them from cashing in on the house. She even had an email where Tom discussed strategies for pressuring me to sign over my rights to the property once I turned 18. They had it all planned out, but when I refused to sign anything, they decided to just kick me out and wait until I was desperate enough to agree to the sale. This revelation hit me hard. I always knew Jane chose Tom over me, but finding out they had actively plotted to steal my inheritance made me physically sick. They waited until I was barely legal, made me homeless, and then profited from the house our parents left for both of us. I'm even more certain now that I made the right decision in refusing to help Jane, but the constant harassment from family members is wearing me down. My phone keeps buzzing with messages telling me I'm heartless, that I'm abandoning my sister when she needs me most. Some have even threatened to tell my employer about what a terrible person I am, as if that would change anything. I've started blocking numbers and social media accounts, but it's exhausting. The same people who didn't lift a finger to help me when I was a homeless teenager are now preaching to me about family loyalty. The hypocrisy is astounding. A small part of me feels guilty when I think about Jane sleeping in her car like I did, but then I remember that she and Tom orchestrated my homelessness for profit. At least she's an adult with work experience and connections. I was barely 18 with nothing but a high school diploma and a part-time grocery store job. I'm thinking about sending Sarah's evidence to all the family members who've been harassing me, but I'm not sure if it's worth the drama. Right now, I'm just trying to focus on my work and maintain my peace of mind. But there's a bitter satisfaction in knowing that Jane is finally experiencing what she put me through, even if everyone else thinks I'm the villain in this story. Update 2: I wasn't planning to post another update so soon, but something major happened. Remember how I mentioned Tom's gambling problem? Well, the situation is much worse than anyone realized. Yesterday morning, I was in a meeting at work when my secretary messaged that my sister was in the lobby, crying and refusing to leave. I was ready to call security, but something about the urgency in my secretary's message made me go down to see what was happening. I found Jane looking completely broken, not the calculated tears from her porch performance, but real, gut-wrenching sobs. After calming her down enough to talk, she confessed something that made my blood run cold. When they sold our parents' house after kicking me out, Tom had actually forged my signature on the sale documents. But that wasn't even the worst part. Over the years, he had taken out multiple loans using the house as collateral, again forging my signature. Jane claims she only discovered this during their divorce proceedings when their lawyer found irregularities in their financial documents. She brought a stack of papers, loan agreements, bank statements, and legal documents, all bearing what was supposed to be my signature. I've never seen these papers before in my life. According to the documents, Tom had been taking out loans since 2016, using both my and Jane's forged signatures. He used the money to fuel his gambling addiction, taking out new loans to pay off old ones until everything finally collapsed. When Jane found out about this during the divorce proceedings, she initially kept quiet, hoping to handle it privately. But then their lawyer informed her that she could be implicated in the fraud since she benefited from the sale of the house. That's when she decided to come clean to me. I immediately called my lawyer, who confirmed this is serious fraud. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars in fraudulent loans, all taken out in my name without my knowledge. My lawyer says I could face financial repercussions if we don't address this immediately, as my name is tied to these loans even though I never saw a penny of the money. The most infuriating part? Jane admitted she knew something was off years ago when Tom started making large purchases they couldn't afford on their salaries alone. She chose to look the other way because they were living comfortably. She said she assumed he got a big bonus or had family money he hadn't told her about. Even when she noticed documents with my signature, she convinced herself that Tom must have gotten my permission somehow. I'm struggling to process the layers of betrayal here. First, they kick me out to sell the house. Then, Tom commits fraud using my name, and Jane ignores the red flags. Now she's only coming clean because she's afraid of legal consequences for herself. Jane spent hours begging me not to press charges against Tom. She says he's still the father of her children, they have 2 kids I've never met, and that sending him to jail won't get the money back. She offered to testify about the fraud if I allow her to stay with me and help her get back on her feet. The audacity of trying to negotiate while confessing to enabling fraud against me is astounding. I told her she could either help me pursue legal action against Tom or I would report them both for fraud. She broke down again, saying she never meant for any of this to happen, that she was young and in love when they kicked me out, and that she didn't know Tom would do something like this. But I'm done with her excuses. My lawyer is building a case against Tom. We've filed police reports and are working with forensic accountants to trace where all the money went. Initial investigations suggest Tom lost most of it gambling, but there's evidence he may have hidden some assets before the divorce. The family drama has taken a new turn too. When word got out about the fraud, some relatives who were criticizing me suddenly changed their tune. Aunt Maria, who was my biggest critic, now says she always knew there was something off about Tom. The hypocrisy is laughable. Jane is staying with our aunt now, and I've made it clear that any communication should go through our lawyers. Some family members are still pushing me to handle this within the family, saying pressing charges will only make things worse. But I'm done protecting people who never protected me. I'm trying to stay focused on the legal proceedings, but it's hard not to feel overwhelmed. My credit score has taken a hit, and I'm worried about the long-term implications of having my name attached to all this fraud. The lawyer says we have a strong case, but these things take time. Final update. I debated whether to post this final update, but after everything that's happened, I feel like I owe it to everyone who's supported me through this mess. The last 3 months have been a roller coaster, and things have taken an unexpected turn. The legal case against Tom is moving forward. The police found evidence that he's done this to other people, not just me. Apparently, he had a whole system of taking out loans using forged documents. The prosecutor says he could face significant jail time, especially since the total fraud amounts to over $500,000. But that's not why I'm writing this update. Last week, I discovered something that finally pushed me to cut all ties with Jane and our extended family. A cousin I haven't spoken to in years reached out to show me screenshots from a private family Facebook group I wasn't part of. In this group, Jane had been telling a completely different version of our story for years. According to her posts, I was a troubled teenager who made her life hell after our parents died. She claimed I was doing drugs, stealing money from her, and bringing sketchy friends to the house. She said she only asked me to move out because she caught me stealing from Tom's wallet and was worried about having me around her future children. She even implied that I might have been involved in some illegal activities, which was why I managed to buy a house so young. Reading these posts made me physically sick. Not only had she lied about kicking me out, but she had also been actively destroying my reputation within the family for years. Every relative who read those posts probably thought I was some kind of criminal. It explained why some family members had been so cold to me at the few family events I attended over the years. I decided enough was enough. I spent a week gathering evidence, my old school records showing perfect attendance and honor roll status, pay stubs from my teenage jobs at the grocery store, character references from my friends' parents who took me in, bank statements showing every penny I earned working 2 jobs through college, and the recent evidence about Tom's fraud. I also had those old text messages from Tom's sister about their plan to sell the house, plus documentation showing they sold it just 2 months after kicking me out. I created a detailed timeline of everything that happened, backed up by solid evidence. Then I did something I never thought I would do. I posted everything publicly. Every document, every message, every piece of evidence, all with a long post explaining the real story. I tagged every family member who had been in that private group, everyone who had harassed me about not helping Jane, everyone who had shared her crying video. The fallout was immediate. Many family members who had sided with Jane started reaching out to apologize. Some claimed they never knew the full story, despite me trying to tell them for years. Others tried to defend themselves, saying they were just trying to keep the peace in the family. Jane tried to damage control by saying she only wrote those things because she was hurt and angry, but no one's buying it anymore. The timestamps on her posts show she's been spreading these lies consistently for years, not just recently. I've blocked Jane, Tom, and most of our extended family. A few cousins who apologized sincerely might stay in my life, but I'm done with the toxic family dynamics. My lawyer advised me to cut contact anyway because of the ongoing legal case, but honestly, I should have done this years ago. To everyone who's followed this journey and offered support, thank you. You helped me stay strong when I was doubting myself. Sometimes the hardest part of standing up for yourself is believing you deserve to. I've learned that blood doesn't make a family, actions do. The friends who helped me when I was homeless, my coworkers who supported me through this mess, and even strangers on Reddit who offered kind words, you've been more family to me than my actual relatives. The legal case continues, but this chapter of my life is closed. I finally feel free.